Hello everybody, it is currently the 26th of June at 8 AM on the Eastern Coast, which means the release of Shadowbringers for early access is less than 48 hours away. And earlier this morning, Square Enix dropped the patch 5.0 notes, the preliminary version. So while I'm sure this is more or less subject to change, we can get a pretty good idea of what's going to be immediately available with the expansion. Now these patch notes are pretty long, so something I'm not going to go too deep into. I'll just mention here, Eden's Gate, the new raid, will be 5.01, I think 2 weeks after the official launch, which will be on July 2nd. And then the Savage version will be 2 weeks after that, 5.05, I believe. And then the Restoration of the Holy See of Ishgard, I believe that's going to be when Ishgard housing is added, as well as the New Game Plus system that lets you replay through the main scenario quests, are going to be 5.1 or later. So I assume that you know how the patch notes work. Basically, this just lists what expansion you need to have in order to play certain content. So for example, if it has 2.x, then as long as you have A Realm Reborn or any further expansion after that, you will have access to the content. So first, we have new cities have been added. Unfortunately, it looks like there's no larger version of these pictures to look at. But we'll just take a quick look. Very beautiful. So this looks a lot like the Crystal Tower area. So we can imagine that might be why they've been pushing us to complete those, or maybe for something else. Speaking of which, the Mughal Tombstones of Philosophy, when the game goes down for maintenance before early access, I believe that will be the last opportunity you'll have to earn those tombstones. You'll still be able to redeem them until I believe 5.1, but you will not be able to earn those tombstones anymore. At least not until a future iteration of the event. So that's the Crystarium, and then Yulmore. It's very neat looking. This looks like the area from the Fat Makotes, I believe it was, that they showed us artwork of. So I guess this castle here is where all the rich people live, and then this is perhaps where the poor people are. A very pretty sky in the background. Very interesting. There's a fountain here. Looks like we can't really see any NPCs, but lots of very ornate decorations, very pretty. I'm so looking forward to exploring them. We have new field areas, which are our open game areas outside of the cities. As we can see here, that same crystal in the distance. So this is probably the first area that we'll go to. Here we have some sort of tower and a banner. And let me just say really fast, I don't know so much about the lore of the game, so I'm not the one to come to for that information, but just a quick rundown of the patch notes. We have Colusia, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, maybe it's Colusia. Looks like there's some sort of lift over here. We have some old windmills. And then here we can see that castle area again. We have Amarang. So we have some tracks here, looks more like a dry, arid area, lots of rocks, kind of reminiscent of Thanalin. Particularly Central Thanalin I'm thinking of, because that also has the train tracks that run through it. And here we have some really interesting looking bright yellow rocks, as well as some old architecture, old brickwork. And Ilmeg, very, very beautiful. It's got all these crystals everywhere. It's got this little castle on top of this little, I forget what the word is. The one I'm thinking of is archipelago, but I don't think that's correct. Well, it's not an archipelago per se, but I guess it is sort of like an island, it looks like. Anyways, very neat. I have a friend who's gonna love this new area with these mushrooms. This is very neat. So you can see here the buildings are mushrooms, and there are lots of mushrooms growing around in the area. Some of them glow. There are some smaller mushrooms that glow. A very neat looking area. Definitely has just the slightest hint of a Super Mario feel to it because of the type of mushrooms they've chosen for the majority of the buildings, the red caps with the white stem. Very neat looking. The Raktika Greatwood, sort of a forest area, forest and swamp. You can see here there's some sort of encampment here with a bunch of wooden structures. There's a treant here. The model that I think it's turn 8 was based on. If you look at them closely, you'll see it right away. And then we get a picture of the new aetheryte here. Very interesting looking. It looks like it has a larger base than most of the aetherytes we've seen before, and it's got this bright, glowing white center, and then it's also got these smaller aetherytes hovering around it. And in the background we can see all of these branches and trees and whatnot. Very interesting looking. And so here are more looks at the new aetherytes, and we can see that these ones also have this white glow towards their base, and then the larger bases that they're sitting on. Here we have some area with a double stairway. Here we have an aetheryte that looks to be surrounded by some sort of masonry. And the crystals in the background in the distance, with the same beautiful skies that we saw earlier. That's going to be it for the new areas. Now we do have some information on quests, but I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly. We'll just see there are some pictures here. There's a ferry. Some scions up to things. New side story quests, of course. And new role quests. So my understanding of how, if you've played Final Fantasy, you know that every job has its own chain of quests. So I believe, at least for the Disciples of War and Magic, going forward you will simply do a quest for your role, and you will have to complete a quest for your role in order to progress through the main scenario at some point. So for example, if you play Black Mage through the main scenario, then at some point you will have to do the Magical DPS role quest. So this is just information on those. New job quests have been added. So there are still job quests at level 80, it looks like. So you will essentially, you'll do the role quest, and then at 80 you'll wrap up your story more or less. Crystarium deliveries have been added. Crystarium deliveries are just the new custom delivery system. Each Disciple of Hand or Land will be able to progress through one of 5 series of quests associated with the different facets of the crystalline mean. Completing devices for a facet of the crystalline mean will advance the story of that particular facet. So it looks like the custom deliveries are going to be a lot more involved and have a lot more lore associated with them this time around, which I think is fascinating. I've really enjoyed the custom delivery system since I came back to the game, and it's nice that it will be available right off the bat. Then there's a quest in order to unlock it, and the associated quests for progression. Additions and adjustments have been made to rewards for certain MSQ, side story, and job quests. Leave quests have been added, of course, for Hand and Land. And Tradecraft and Fieldcraft leave quest rewards will be significantly reduced when using a class at level 70 or above to complete a leave with a level requirement below 70. I'm kind of disappointed to read that, because if you're like me, then you've already done... I have 16 leaves ready to go for my Miner and Botanist as soon as the expansion launches. And I'll still get some rewards, but it looks like they probably nerfed it pretty hard. So that's going to take off a big chunk of that head start I was hoping to get. But you know, that's the risk you take when you prepare something like that, I suppose. New fates have been added. You will receive bi-color gemstones upon completing 5.0 fates, and this can be exchanged with gemstone trader NPCs for various goods. So here's one of those NPCs, it's a fairy. Furthermore, as you continue to complete fates in these new areas, traders will offer a wider selection of items, and you have a progression window here, kind of like for when you unlock your wind currents for flying. Treasure hunt, there will be new maps, of course, glider skin and zonier skin treasure maps. And then the wyvern skin and Gargana skin treasure maps have been adjusted. And then the tombstones have been changed to poetics for the map rewards for pre-5.0 maps. You will now sync to 70 in the Lost Canals of Uznar, the Hidden Canals of Uznar, and the Shifting Altars of Uznar. Additional items are accepted for supply and provisioning missions. Some stuff that practically nobody cares about, adjustments to the submersible system. Unfortunately, I know too little about it to really speak to it. Blue Mage, Gunbreaker, and Dancer symbol options have been added to company crests. Furnishings from the design contest have been added. I really like this little stump here, branch. And this is a cool looking lamp too. I'm excited to see them. It's a white mage lamp. New furnishings have been added, of course. I assume that this is a false window, kind of like the one we got in Stormblood. Very pretty stained glass, and lots of other interesting looking furnishings. Blue Mage, Gunbreaker, and Dancer gear has been added for mannequins. New estate tags have been added, so Atelier, I assume that's like a gallery. Bathhouse, if you're into the lewd stuff. Garden, if you really like gardening. And then Far Eastern, which is, you know, obviously the Stormblood style. A preview function has been added for furnishings. We'll see how well it actually works when it gets here. The restriction on exterior fixtures based on housing ward have been removed, which is a good idea because if you're like me, then at one point you constructed the Ingen Nanpu exterior just to find out you can't use it in lavender beds. I've since gotten a house in Shiro, but I was pretty disappointed to find out the hard way. Help interface will now display when speaking with a resident caretaker. Crafting facility furnishings can now be used by crafting classes up to level 70. They have added a new level 80 striking dummy. I like it. It looks like a poor little guy. New orchestrion rolls, of course. New aquarium fish, of course. New seed for flower pots. The hydrangea. Sorry if I'm butchering that. Based on a real flower. The Manderville Gold Saucer. There are new prizes available. I've currently got about 3.3 million MGP ready to rock and roll for those. Following additions and changes have been made to Triple Triad, new cards, new NPC opponents, and you can now play matches in new areas. Changes have been made to Mahjong, we don't need to worry about that. Players can now select Hrothgar and Vieira. They've added more sightseeing log, and you no longer need to be a Disciple of War or Magic to complete sightseeing logs. Adjustments have been made to the challenge log, mainly to the fate. They've gotten rid of the Fated to Wander and Embrace Your Fate, and now it's simple, just 5 and 10 fates with the highest rating, much better, much more streamlined. There are now bronze certificates for Chloe. I assume that's to address the variance there is with getting just one line. Maybe the only time you get one line is when it's a minion you already have and not the one you want or something like that. So that's what I assume that changes to address. Skywatcher NPCs have been added to the new areas. And upon meeting certain requirements, NPCs in the first will be able to offer weather forecast for the source, and vice versa. I thought that was an interesting tidbit, but I don't really understand what exactly that dynamic is going to be. I assume it's like we're going to have the source world, and then the first will be the inverse of it. But that's just my very rudimentary understanding of everything we learned about Shadowbringers so far. So essentially while you're in the first, you'll still be able to see the alternate world's weather as well. New emotes have been added, new hairstyles have been added. Level cap is raised to 80, Gunbreaker and Dancer have been added. I'm so looking forward to Dancer. I'm going to be playing ranged physical in my static. And while I'll start with Machinist to see how that plays, I think Dancer will be my second job I level up. New job actions have been added. You can watch that video if you'd like, just by visiting the patch notes. Substantial revisions have been made to the battle system. Umbral Ice now reduces the MP cost of ice spells. Enmity gain for certain healing actions has been reduced. To improve player usability, the time frame within which players must execute actions to continue or complete combos has been extended. This is really good because, I'm sure you're aware, the bosses in this game like to jump away all the time or become untargetable, and losing those combo actions is a huge potency drop if you play melee or any combo job. So that's a very good change. It can always help to have some extra time. A fixed set of role actions has been assigned to all jobs, so you no longer have to select the 10 role actions that are available. They keep revamping the role action system, but it seems like it's getting just a little bit better each step, so I'm excited to see how this works out. Which this information, the role actions each job will have, are already available. The following adjustments have been made to limit breaks. The gauge fills less when using healing actions. It does not fill at all when non-healers use healing actions. And the rate at which it fills in new areas when taking damage from enemies under certain conditions has been reduced. The interrupt effect has been added, so we no longer have stun or silence, I believe, it's just interrupt. So that's just a streamlined version of that mechanic, which is good. Charged actions have been implemented, so now your certain abilities can hold multiple charges, another change I really like. This means that you can save multiple charges for your burst window. It just adds a little bit more depth to the job. And yeah, there are a lot of abilities where you just, it's much better to either have two of them back to back or to have one on standby in case something unexpected happens. Certain weapon skills and spells will now have unique recast timers, This is basically just effects with their own global cooldown timer. So they give the example of Air Anchor. It is a global cooldown ability, but it has a 36.88 second recast, or I should say weapon skill, because abilities are the off global cooldown. So you can't cast this while your main global cooldown is rolling, I guess. I'm not 100% sure how they are going to work together, but I assume it's going to be kind of like how Bard's works. I forget the name of their current ability that they have that's got its own global cooldown. But actually thinking of that you should be able to cast it as if it was an off GCD, and it's just got its own GCD, but we'll learn as the content comes out. Following adjustments have been made to pets. Pet actions have been removed. Pets can no longer be targeted by player or enemy actions. Pets will no longer be displayed in the party list, and pet HP will no longer be displayed when targeted. So that's interesting. It seems like they're simplifying the pet system a little bit. I've never been a big fan of playing Summoner or Scholar specifically because the pet system has always seemed so clunky, and because I don't like the idea of having to create macros in order to control my pet without having to micromanage it in a really irritating way. I know some people they like that idea, or maybe you think that I'm just blowing it out of proportion, and maybe I am, because to be honest I'm not very experienced with it. But the pet system has always kind of shied me away from Scholar and Summoner. So maybe this will be a change that makes me more interested in playing them. Player attributes have been adjusted as followed. TP has been removed, hallelujah. Maximum MP for all jobs has been fixed at 10,000. The effect of Piety has been changed from increasing max MP to increasing MP regen. Parrying and blocking are now less effective in reducing damage. In accordance with changes to player attributes, the effects of certain monsters and NPC actions have been adjusted. Party bonus effects have also been adjusted. Now whenever you have a member of any of the 5 roles, you will get a 1% increase to all 5 of the main stats, so that's Strength, Vitality, Dexterity, Mind, and Intelligence, up to a maximum of 5%. So now ideally, this is good because it means that it's pretty much always going to be worth having at least one of every role. But it's not going to make party composition too rigid. We'll see how things like Trick Attack continue to affect the rating meta in the near future. But it's a very interesting change to see, and I think it's much better and much easier to understand than the way the current stat bonus system works. The Armory bonus, 100% bonus experience, now applies to all jobs below level 70. In accordance with the increase in level cap, bonuses for new worlds and preferred worlds are now applicable up to 69. New dungeons have been added. This is what I'm excited about. So we have another sort of eastern area looking here. We can see some sort of pine trees in the background. Little bridge, river. I'm so excited for the new dungeons. We have a much more colorful than the last one dungeon here. I believe this is the one that the North American Media Tour players were allowed to do a run through of. Very interesting looking tree here. Just beautiful looking. I like the landscape, I like the colors. I'm excited to kill the mobs. There's some little, look kind of like funguars with legs coming out. And this looks like some sort of purple bear with vines on its back. Look, even more pretty colors back here. In the water it looks like. Vines all over the place. This one is another less saturated one, much less colorful, I should say. And we can't really see nearly as much here. We can just see a little bit of a structure here, some roots, another giant tree in the background, and then it's littered with other small, more shrubby trees. And then this one looks amazing. Just pure white and gold. It has a very interesting feel to it. I hope that the entire dungeon is in this whole white and gold area and that this isn't just the last area leading up to the boss. Or maybe we run through this building and scale it, and then when we get to the roof we enter here to fight the final boss. That's just me speculating, but absolutely beautiful design. I cannot wait to be near the last dungeon of the main scenario quest in order to check this out. Or this might actually even be one of the level 80 dungeons. Maybe these two are. The experience chain bonus in dungeons has been removed, and they've buffed the experience gained to accommodate that. The trust system has been added. So you're still locked into a regular party composition when using the trust system, but now you can basically bring your Scion NPC friends with you to run dungeons. I'm sure that you've heard about the trust system by now. It's basically just a more modern version of the squadron system. and you can use it to skip queues as long as it doesn't congest the servers too much and completely crash everything during early access, but we'll see. Item level sync has been applied to certain instance quest battles. In accordance with the increase in level cap, players can now gain experience from level 70 dungeons and 4.x Alliance raid dungeons, so Orban Monastery and whatnot now give experience. They have added 2 new trials. This looks to be some sort of fairy. Maybe I should know who these are, but sadly I do not. Some sort of fairy, she's got a staff. We can see that that stained glass we saw from the housing areas before. We've got more of that theme here. Very sort of religious vibe to it. But then she's also got these giant fairy wings. So interested to see what she's all about. And then we've also got a second champion here that we'll have to deal with. But she's much more clad in armor, and she has these giant golden wings. She looks to be holding a spear. She's wearing this cloak. Very intimidating looking. Also excited to battle her. Echoes applied to all 4.x trials. It's been buffed in Alphascape Savage. The following additions and changes have been made to tombstones. So basically we are getting rid of our Genesis and Mendacity, but we can trade those in for Poetics. And all of the gear and Roggers that you've been buying for Mendacity and for Genesis, you can now buy for Poetics as well. And then Tombstones of Geisha have been added. So these will be the new best tombstones available at the moment. A secondary currency, Tombstones of Phantasmagoria, will be available approximately 4 weeks after the start of official service for Shadowbringers. So 1 month in and 2 weeks after. So this will be right when Savage drops, I think, and 2 weeks after the regular raid tier drops, the Eden. Players can now use the undersized party option to do Stormblood duties. Raid Finder now only lists trials from 5.0, excluding the ultimates. The duty finder has been adjusted as follows. The duties associated with each duty roulette have been adjusted. Duty finder categories have been adjusted. 50-60 dungeons and 70 dungeons have been combined into 50-60-70 dungeons, and the type and number of tombstones received from each duty roulette category has been adjusted. So, aside from the addition of 70 to the 50-60 roulette, it looks like we're working with all the same ones. And we can see the tombstone rewards here. It looks like 50-60-70, and leveling actually give better rewards than expert. But I imagine once Phantasmagoria tombs are added, that expert will be much more worthwhile. And of course the expert dungeons will be the fun ones because you'll have your full rotation at level 80. The weekly restriction on crack clusters from Orban Monastery has been removed. So crack clusters you can trade for a tier 6 combat materia. So, meh. New enemies have been added. We have some sort of cactuar on crack here. Very interesting looking. We've got a little purple lizard guy. We've got a sort of skinny worker 8 type enemy here. And then we've got, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a beheaded Mandragora who's weaved out of basket. Or not even Mandragora. Like, I don't even know how to describe it, but it looks kind of like a doll. And it's made out of basket weave, but it's got plants growing out of it. And it has no head, just more plants growing out there. My favorite, new elite marks have been added. We've got this purple fish horse, we've got this little green goblin who looks much like the goblins of early Final Fantasy games. We have got this robo frog, and I can't even tell what this is. Some sort of bug insect type thing that runs around on a orb. So we don't know what rank these hunts are. I assume they're showing us a little bit the B's and A's. Maybe this one's an S rank, it's hard to tell the scaling of it. But hunts, or the elite marks, are the majority of my gameplay, except for when there's brand new content for the most part. And you know, Hyperion hunts are pretty notorious for the way we do things. But anyways, I'll go on about that later in another video. Players can now hunt regular and elite marks in new areas. I love this here. Marks defeated in the new areas will also yield sacks of nuts, which can be exchanged for various items. Players must first complete this quest in Hume Loot, the Crystarium. The quest is from Hume Loot, and it's in the Crystarium. You just have to be level 70, and you must complete Elite and Dangerous and have progressed to a certain point in the main scenario. So I think Elite and Dangerous is the one for Centaurio seals. You can exchange sacks of nuts for items with the following NPCs in the Crystarium and in Yulmore. So, I think that they know exactly what they're doing with the sacks of nuts, by the way. Notification will now display when an S rank pops. This is a good change. A lot of players use third-party software to detect S ranks, and it makes them harder to notice. It makes it easier for a player to spawn it and kill it on their own if it's a lower level one, like in the A Realm Reborn area, and then players keep trying to spawn it because trackers don't get marked, and you know it's just a moot point for them. Notification indicating the general direction of B rank marks will now display when they spawn in an area, so you'll just sense where your mark is at, more or less, I guess. A notification indicating a nearby B rank has been defeated will now also display. You no longer sense the presence of your mark. So this makes it so that you don't have to look up the spawn locations and check all of them to do your weekly elite marks, basically. Centaurio's seal cap has been increased from 1 to 4,000. Mark bills for A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Ward can now be used to open maps for their respective areas. The following additions and changes have been made to Deep Dungeons. Items yielded by Palace of the Dead have been adjusted. Gunbreaker and Dancer arms are available from EU and Encoder. So that's the Hyperion ones, the ones that are white and glow. And it looks like the same deal for Heaven on High. The Lawns, an expansion of Stone Sky Sea, has been added, so for checking your DPS and whatnot to see if you're ready for certain content. Following adjustments have been made to Logos actions in Eureka. Wisdom of the Duelist has no longer reduces TP since there is no more TP, and same for Rejuvenate. PvP traits have been removed. I guess that's a good change. The PvP situation with this game is in such a weird place right now. PvP actions for all jobs have been adjusted. At least they continue trying new things. I at least appreciate that they keep trying to make it better, even if it's incredibly slowly. Additional actions are now adjusted on current job's roll. TP has been removed. The range of melee attacks has been increased from 3 to 5 yalms. GCD of actions has been increased from 2.3 to 2.4 seconds. HP recovery outside combat has been increased from 10 to 20% of max HP. MP recovery rate in combat has been increased to 250. Outside of combat to 500 from 400. Players will now be granted temporary immunity to knockback and draw-in after being affected. And XP awarded after a match will now be granted to the job used at the line of registration rather than the current job at the end of the match. This is a brilliant change, because if you want to level your Machinist, but you can heal if the party needs it, then if you queue in as Machinist, then you might have to change to Healer and miss out on that experience, because your party needs a healer or else it's definitely going to get crushed. So this is a good change. You can now just designate which job you want the experience to go on to. The Feast's PvP team season has ended. Now we get to the items. New items have been added, so we have some new gear sets here. We're not going to look at those too much. New recipes have been added. Certain items may now be sold, desynthesized, submitted as expert deliveries, and converted into materia. Certain items can no longer be sold. The sale prices of certain items have changed. The following item names have been changed. This is just old event stuff. The main attributes of accessories have been adjusted in accordance with the rebalancing of the battle system. The main attribute of the Aetheryte earring when equipped by a tank has been changed from Vitality to Strength. The haste attribute on certain equipment is now displayed with a plus sign rather than a minus sign. Which it makes sense because if you're like me when you first got to Eureka, you were looking at the speed belt, you're like, haste -3, you mean it makes me slower? Why is that good? But of course once you try it out inside of Eureka, you see that it's actually a crazy buff to your GCD. New items available in exchange for achievement certificates. Gunbreaker and Dancer have been added as required jobs for certain gear. Following adjustments have been made to materia melding. When a meld fails, it's now possible to immediately reattempt the meld, so long as more of the same materia is present in the melder's inventory. This is a brilliant change. If you've ever helped anyone pentameld, like a crafted gear or anything, then you know how frustrating it is for them to have to request a meld over and over and over and over again for something that has like a 5% chance. It takes forever. Following attributes can no longer be improved via materia, the main stats. After watching it the first time, it is now possible to skip the cutscene when requesting materia transmutation from Mutamix. Following types of materia are no longer able to be obtained, and their attribute enhancing capabilities have been removed, all the main stat materias. The level cap for desynthesis has been increased from 380 to 450, and cumulatively 1370. The level cap for Disciple of Hand and Land is now 80. Elemental aspects have been removed from synthesis recipes, which is a good idea. and they've all been sort of condensed into one action. So I'm talking about things like Brand of Wind, Brand of Fire. Now you just have Brand of the Elements, which will do the function of all of them. It just makes the cross-class system a little less annoying. There are abilities that they've never really utilized properly for the crafters, and they're just confusing overall, so good change. So yeah, Steady Hand 2 and Bayergot's Blessing are now available to all classes, which is brilliant because obviously you can't really do endgame crafting without these two. And they can no longer be set as additional actions. So some crafter abilities have been removed. Following conditions have been added to crafter actions. Inner Quiet, the bonus to control, can be stacked with innovation but cannot exceed 3,000. We won't go through each of these, but I assume they're pretty much the same for each. Following actions and adjustments have been made to the crafting log. The maximum percentage to which initial quality can be raised by using HQ materials is now displayed on recipes. That's very helpful, so we can actually see how well we can do. We get all HQ materials that can help us make some decisions. The values of both progress and quality increase at 100% efficiency are now displayed on recipes for your currently equipped crafting class. This is another brilliant change because now you don't need to use out-of-game crafting calculators in order to determine how hard your synthesis actions are going to hit, which are very important to how you do your rotation. This is very important information. It really should have been present since the very start of the crafting system, but let's all be happy that we finally got it now. Class Quest category has been changed to read Story. Following additions and adjustments have been made to the synthesis window. So we can see here our synthesis window looks much better now. We have a gauge for durability so we can see how it's doing. In addition, we have a history of the actions that we've done. The UI has been adjusted to make durability and condition information easier to understand. A symbol indicating that collectible synthesis is in progress will now be displayed in the window. I still wish that the collectible synthesis thing is... I don't know what to do about it, but it'll happen all the time. I mean, really after it happens once or twice, you stop letting it happen because you become traumatized. But you'll sit down to do like 10 or 20 collectibles, and you'll craft all of them and then realize that you forgot to hit collectible synthesis, or that you switched jobs and switched back and your synthesis fell off and most of them aren't collectibles. And there's no process of fixing that once you make them as non-collectibles. But I don't know how you fix that, but it's frustrating. So I guess any help is good. So we have a symbol indicating that collectible synthesis is in progress. Status applied by crafter actions are now displayed in the window. The values of both progress and quality increase at 100% efficiency are now displayed on the window. Calculations for increases to progress and quality, assuming a base 100% efficiency, have been adjusted. The difficulty of certain recipes in Master Recipes 5 and 6 have been reduced. New actions and traits have been added for Disciples of the Land. So we don't really know what any of these do. We can make some assumptions about some of them. There are, of course, new miner and botanist gathering points. Additions and adjustments have been made to fishing. Following additions and adjustments have been made to spearfishing. Stuff I'm not really interested in. New tombs of regional folklore, so that these are the books you read in order to learn about the unspoiled nodes. New items that can be used for ethereal reduction have been added, so that is to get things like your sand, and similar things. Like your Dusklight Ether Sand, for example, use ethereal reduction to farm those. The amount of items received from ethereal reduction has been adjusted. Freshwater boilies and saltwater boilies, bait effective on a wide variety of fish in 2.0 areas, have been added. That's good because there is no simple way to store a diverse amount of bait. The bait system can be really frustrating because you either have to constantly be able to purchase the bait you need or craft the bait you need, or you have to waste all of this space to hold this fishing bait, which maybe you only like to fish every once in a while, if you like to fish at all. Additions and adjustments have been made to the gathering log. Entries relating to regional folklore are now categorized by region. Gathering location and time information will now be displayed for any item successfully gathered from undiscovered or hidden gathering points. This is brilliant. It's rather frustrating that you basically have to use a website to track times, or you have to write down a list. You basically have to do something outside of game or create a macro in game, which wasn't always possible, in order to keep track of all the different gathering points you have access to. I wonder if it's going to tell you which slot you gathered it from, or if you're still going to need to keep track of that information for yourself. Gathering time information will now be displayed for any item successfully gathered from ephemeral gathering points. A timer indicating when the item will next be available for gathering can now be created for any item successfully gathered from an undiscovered, hidden, or ephemeral gathering point. So that's brilliant. Players above level 70 will now receive a maximum of 10,000 XP when trading collectibles of level 70 or lower. Wah wah. So they're basically not worth doing at all. The amount of experience received from delivering collectibles as a level 60 to 70 gatherer has been increased. Following additions and adjustments have been made to crafters and gatherer scripts. White crafter scripts and gatherer scripts have been added for Disciples of Hand and Land at 80. Red scripts are no longer attainable. I assume they can be traded for yellows. Yes, yellow crafters and gatherers at the script exchange in Revenant's Toll. Currently held a red. Okay, they're just not lost yet. Blue crafters scripts and gatherer scripts have been removed. The amount of yellow crafters and gatherer scripts required in exchange for items has been adjusted. So I imagine they lowered the cost of most yellow script items. The amount of crafters and gatherers scripts received from delivering custom collectibles has been adjusted. Level 70 arms, gear, and accessories have been added to the inventory of vendors in Kugana. New items have been added to the inventory of Calamity Salvagers. New mounts have been added. This is, I believe, the Triceratops, which is for the for doing the new hunts. Sort of how you get the Centaurios Tiger for doing the crazy S rank and A rank achievements for the old hunts. Looks to be some sort of direwolf with wings. Very interesting looking. I'm not sure how it's obtained. The following mounts are now able to fly. It's about time. These are the tank mounts. So the Battle Bear, and the Battle Lion, and then the Dark Knight's Curl, I forget what it's called. War Panther. And in addition, the regular Curl and the Cavalry Elves can fly. So these were the only mounts left in the game, as far as I recall, that couldn't fly. So it's good that they're making this change. I wonder why you need to have 3.x because that's when flying was added, obviously. New Chocobo barding has been added. We have this Dancer barding, it looks like, and I guess this is Gunbreaker barding. Very cool. New minions have been added. Oh, look at this angry duck here. Cute. And then some sort of, I wouldn't even know how to describe it. Something with fangs. A little cute furry guy with fangs. A market board has been added to the Crystarium. Very neat looking market board. It looks very different from the other market boards we've got. Reduced tax rates have been adjusted with the addition of a new market board. Following additions and adjustments have been made to retainers. They can now be registered to the Crystarium market. Hrothgar and Viera can now be selected as retainer races. Hairstyle and face paint obtained as rewards can now be applied to retainers. The level cap has been raised to 80. Retainers can now be assigned Gunbreaker and Dancer jobs. There are some requirements for that. New objectives have been added to delivery missions and exploration ventures. Exploration ventures are now displayed with the highest level ventures first. The retainer interface has been redesigned and selections can now be reordered. I really like this. So it always helps to have more information when you're looking at your retainers. You can now see how much gil they have without having to inspect it manually. You can now see their inventory capacity, their class. You can see all this information that is really nice to have. Great quality of life changes. Retainer animations upon being summoned or dismissed have been adjusted to increase the responsiveness of the interface, and the color of retainer nameplates has been changed to that of NPCs. New achievements and titles have been added. The following additions and adjustments have been made to achievements. Certain categories have been adjusted. Achievements can now be selected via subcommand and recorded to the watch list for easy access. Achievements can now be filtered by completion status or type of reward, and clicking on an achievement into relevant category will no longer opens its primary category. This is nice, so if you're looking at your last 5, for example, and you click on a PvP achievement, it won't change the window to the PvP sub-window or area. You can just still look at it in the last 5 and inspect it there, and then I assume you'll still be able to go look at it in PvP some way if you like. Following additions and adjustments have been made to the recommendations window. Not so important. Well, there are sightseeing clues, maybe. So sightseeing clues are now displayed. Hunt marks are now displayed. I wonder if it's just the B rank hunt marks. Hunting log entries for both, or maybe they mean the Grand Company hunt log. Anyways, following additions and adjustments have been made to the Party Finder. Links in Party Finder listings can now be posted in the chat log. Pressing the chat button within the recruitment listing will create a link in the chat log, which can then be sent as a message. This makes it easier to invite people to your Party Finder, so great change there. Player's current party finder listing can now be opened via the chat log. So you can right-click a player who's recruiting, I guess, you can right-click them in the chat log and find their party finder. Cross-world party invitations to players on other worlds can now be issued via the chat log. The following additions and adjustments have been made to the party list. This is the area of controversy here. Instead of having this little bar sit in front of the number, why not just have it sit over top of the regular bar here? So these are shields. This is bonus effective HP. So if you're missing HP, then it will show you, so this yellow bit here is the shield. It'll show how full your bar would be if the shield was actually HP. But if you're at full HP, then it shows above your bar. Why not move that down right here and just have this little yellow bar over top of the regular bar for all the shields? It makes sense to me. The only situation where I could see it being problematic is if you had less HP than you did shield. But even then, like there are ways to design to fix that. You could just still have the HP be blue and then the shield be yellow for the rest of the bar. You can show this information. This just makes the UI look terrible. Terrible, terrible. You shouldn't be covering up information, even if it is just the number and party. But anyways. And not to mention here, it even goes so far as to cover up the level a little bit. The level icon. So I greatly dislike that, and I hope that they will adjust it immediately. The battle animations for allied NPCs and quest battles will now always appear. The amount of glamours that can be stored in the glamour dresser has been doubled to 400, and we now also have 5 more glamour plates. Following changes have been made to group pose. Trust system NPCs will now be included at duty completion, and squadron NPCs will now repeat their most recently executed action upon duty completion. 2 Shadowbringers trials are now available in the duty recorder. The target's HP can now be displayed in tenths of a percent as opposed to just single percentages. Like, we now get a 1 out of 1000 percentage instead of 1 out of 100, which is very useful. Now you'll really know if you wiped at 0.1% or not. UI's color scheme can now be set to either dark or light, so this is just a visual change. I think I'm going to try the light out, but I really don't think I'm going to like it, but who knows, we'll see. It looks interesting though, it'll at least be different. In accordance with the increased level cap, the conditions that must be met to set your status as new adventurer have been adjusted. Have played less than 168 hours and have not completed a Requiem for Heroes, which I believe is a little bit further in. Or maybe it's the end of Stormblood, I'm not sure. Coinciding with the increase in level cap, the requirements for new mentors have been adjusted as follows. You now need the 80 quests completed. Hopefully they're making this more strict, but it doesn't really look like it. The mentor, for some reason, it's always the worst players in my duty finder duties are the ones with the mentor tags. They really seem to not do their job, and I think it's because the system to get in is too lax, and everyone just wants that 2-seater Pegasus. But anyways, I'm not here to complain about mentors. The following additions and adjustments have been made to cross-world link shells. You can now have 8 of them. Brilliant. It's about time. So we could have more than one. The member list can now be configured to show online members at the top, and options to sort the list by number or alphabetically have been added. Something about DualShock 4 Vibrate. Following additions and adjustments have been made to cutscenes. Text relating to the formation or disbanding of a party will no longer appear if a cutscene is in progress. And the manner in which dialogue selections are displayed has been changed. I like it, it looks much better than the word bubble popping up. Essentially, before, a gray box would appear in the middle with the options listed. This is much more aesthetic, and while it does add some shading, it doesn't really block any of the scene from visibility. The position of the identifying letter next to a focus target's name has been changed. So now it will be to the left of the name instead of the right. Following additions and adjustments have been made to the map. There are now separate toggle icons to turn the map text and map icons on and off. It's nice. Right now you just cycle between a variety of combinations. It's not very efficient and kind of confusing. Certain quest objective icons have been changed to indicate elevation. So if it's below you, you'll get a down arrow. Yes, so down arrow means below you is where the quest objective is at, and the up arrow means above you is where it's at. And you get it for both the main scenario quests as well as side quests. Job gauge details have been revised. The order in which character names are displayed has been adjusted in accordance with changes made to pets. The battle and other tabs of the currency window have been revised. The unlimited setting under frame rate limit and display settings section of the system config has been replaced with maximum 90 FPS. Additions have been made to the system config interface. Settings have been removed from the character config interface, which is related to HP bars and pets. Additions have been made to the character config interface. So target tab, disable targeting of pets and minions in battle. And log window settings, we can set up notification sounds for our cross-world link shells. Adjustments have been made to the keybind menu. So we have Fate, Completion, and Trust shortcut tabs that we can bind, in addition to switching our chat modes to cross-world link shells. Additions and adjustments have been made to text commands. So we have basically just a CWL 1 through 8, as opposed to just CWL is the current cross-world link shell. I don't know why you would ever type out CW link shell when you can just type CWL, but that's fine. We'll now send a message to your currently active. Okay, so if you don't use the number, then whichever one is currently active, or that you used last, I suppose, will be the one that gets it. Some text commands have been removed for Machinist and a PvP trade, I guess. Pet actions can no longer be used as subcommands for text actions. Some aliases have been adjusted. Let's see. Additions have been made to the auto translation dictionary, of course. Same with the PlayStation 4. New music has been added. In order to reduce server congestion upon the release of 5.0, so a couple of things will happen. First, if you're inactive for 30 minutes, you'll be kicked. You'll have to log back in. And new areas will split into multiple instances. We saw this during the Heavens Award launch. So if an area, let's just take the Churning Mists for example. Let's say that the Churning Mists had so many players in it that it was becoming problematic for the servers. Well, they just create a second instance and start funneling people into that one. Once you enter an instance, you can use the Aetheryte to travel to a specific one if you need to. But this is usually just a temporary measure to ease congestion because so many people are going to be playing. But of course it won't be the Churning Mists, it will be one of the new areas, just to be clear. Following additions and adjustments have been made to character creation. The default appearance of characters as displayed on the race and clan selection screens has been adjusted. Hairstyle options can now be limited to favorites only. Hairstyle and face paint options obtained as rewards are now marked accordingly at the aesthetician. That's good, so you'll actually be able to tell which ones are new. Characters on accounts with active subscriptions will be prioritized in login queues. Well, that's nice. If you pay for the game, then they'll give you priority. Support for the Mac 64-bit version has begun, 32-bit has ended. The following additions and adjustments have been made along with the release of the 64-bit Mac version. Auto-translate, this is not particularly important to me. Square Enix account passwords can now be saved on the PlayStation 4 launcher. I'm sure that's nice for PS4 players. The title screen logo and opening movie have been changed for Shadowbringers, of course. And you can still see Stormblood under the Movies menu. And Gunbreaker and Dancer have been added to the solo rankings for Palace of the Dead and Heaven on High. That was quite a behemoth of patch notes. I'm scared to see how long this video is going to be. But yeah, so let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you're most excited about. I know for me personally, I'm most excited to check out these sacks of nuts and see what they do. And see these new hunt mobs. But I'm also incredibly interested in seeing these new dungeons, especially this one here. And these new trials, of course. Very excited for so many things. And we have less than 48 hours until early access begins. So hopefully I will see you guys there. If you ever want to contact me in-game, it is Raine Cetra at Hyperion. You can just look at the description of the video. And I hope to hear from you soon, and enjoy the expansion.